Okay, so today we're going to go over how to turbo a VR6. This is going to be mainly towards 12 valve. Some of the stuff will still apply to 24 valve, but the majority of it is just all 12 valve. Some of the stuff will work on a Mark III too, but mostly Mark IV 12 valve. So the first thing I'm going to get into is the tune. You're going to want to go with like a, just to start off budget wise, you want to go with a C2 or United Motorsports or one of the out of the box tunes that do like a 440 or a 380 or a 630cc injector tune, and you're just going to build off of that. You can go with a custom made manifold, or you can get a log type manifold. The log type one is held up pretty good. I mean, it's got some rust, but it works. It's in a shitty spot and it throws off a lot of heat, but it works. Next is injectors. Depending on the tune you want to go with, you're going to want to get Bosch. You're not going to want to get knockoff injectors. That's something you really don't want to go with, is you don't want to lean out, especially under boost, and you know, that's how you'll end up blowing your motor. So I went with 440cc Bosch injectors, and I also went with a Mark III like aluminum steel metal manifold, because the plastic ones tend to break above 10 pounds, and also these injectors are too big for the Mark IV fuel rail, so you'll have to go with either a Mark III manifold or a short runner intake with a custom fuel rail. So that's a clearance issue that intake is going to have to be custom made, because okay, so if you choose this manifold and you choose a decent sized turbo, I'm using a turbo the same size as a 35R, and if you run a large turbo, you can't run it with the cold side on the passenger side of the car because of this. The rain tray gets in the way and you'd have to cut off part of it and then re-weld and do a bunch of bullshit, so I ran the hot side on the passenger side instead. And so you got to get a custom, you know, elbow in there and kind of just make it work, or it won't clear the brake booster. And I mean, see, the Mark III manifold works perfect, but it's really hot, like, because especially since it sits right there, it sits so close, it's doing nothing but just heating it up. Next thing we'll get into is the blow-off valve. You can pretty much choose any, you know, HKS or I have an HKS blow-off valve, and it works perfect. You can choose pretty much any blow-off valve. It's just got to be mounted somewhere on your intercooler piping, and just, I mean, anywhere before the inlet. And you're gonna have to connect the vacuum line from the HKS or your blow-off valve to your intake manifold, or a vacuum line, just so that it knows when the pressure is positive and you let off of the throttle, it releases the air into the atmosphere. And then for the wastegate, this is something I would not cheap out on. I mean, definitely gonna want to go with a reputable brand. I went with Tile. It's just a F38. They're pretty pricey, but it's something you don't want to cheap out on, because you end up over boosting your motor and then you blow it up, and I mean, that's going to end up costing way more in the long run. For oil lines, I just went with some eBay shit. It's just a line, and it taps into your oil filter housing. I'm not sure if you can see that. Maybe I'll get under there. The camera, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that, but it runs off of the oil filter housing, and you just tee into it and put your oil pressure sensor on the top of the tee and the feed from there. Your oil return line is going to have to be much bigger than your oil feed line, so that it can flow through and not back up, because if it backs up, it'll blow the seals in your turbo. So you go with just an eBay oil return and feed kit. I mean, they come with the pump and everything. You just got to get it welded to the pan. Onto the downpipe. This is something you're also going to have custom made by a shop or someone that knows how to weld very well. because there's a few out of the box by, I think it's ATP or Kinetics. They have one, but it's for a smaller turbo, and the hot side's on that side for the downpipe, and it would just, you're better off getting something like this custom made so that it can be made to your needs and adjusted later on. And it definitely is something you want to look into getting custom made. Now with the turbo, you're going to want to go with something a decent size, because if it spools it too quick, these transmissions are known to go at low RPM. If you get on it at like 2500 and you're at full boost, these gearboxes end up just grenading. So you're better off with a bigger turbo that's going to come on like 3500 or 4000. And I mean, you'll have the power up top, but it definitely isn't something bad. So the bigger your turbo, the better you are off. You're going to want to go with a front mount intercooler. You're really not going to want to run non-intercooled unless you're under like 5 pounds of boost. These motors can typically hold about 10 pounds on stop compression, and then, you know, upwards of 25 pounds on a head spacer. So, you know, their motors are pretty damn good. But you're definitely going to want an intercooler setup, because if you run non-intercooled, you have the chance of definitely, you know, knocking, you know, throwing hot air in there is just not a good mix, especially with how hot this gets. I mean, the intake temperatures have to be, you know, I mean, you could fry an egg on this. I can't hold my finger to my hand. That actually hurt. It's very, very hot. So I definitely, I run a low temp thermostat, and definitely gonna get some Mishimoto fans soon, and a radiator by them. But for right now, it's just a basic setup. So a couple other things. A lot of people have questions about wastegates. If you want to run it on a wastegate spring, I have a 10-pound spring in there right now, and you just see you put a line from the wastegate on the side to the top of the turbo, or anywhere on the compressor cold side housing. You have to either get something welded in there, or your turbo might already have it. Like I said, the blow-off valve has to go to a vacuum line. If you want to run a boost gauge, it's an easy spot to tee into right here where the fuel pressure regulator is. You're definitely going to want a wideband O2 sensor, because you don't want to run lean, especially on, you know, on when you're wide open throttle. You'll blow up your motor pretty easy. And the stock fuel pump is good right now on 10 pounds. It's not giving me any issues. I am randomly leaning out. I think it's a filter issue, or maybe a fuel pressure regulator issue, but I don't think that's, it's definitely something that's faulty with the car, and it's not an issue you would have out of the box as long as your car is running healthy. But that's pretty much it. If you guys have any comments, or if you have any questions or comments, just leave it in the comment box, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Definitely would like to help anybody as much as I can, because, you know, people have helped me so much. So I just like to give back and, you know, help people with their VRTs.